mean, I'm pretty sure that, that Bitcoin will be kind of the true North monetary standard. That's my belief. There'll be no Federal Reserve. The price of everything will be fair. You won't have all this monetary premium in homes. Young people will be able to afford things. You won't have to worry about inflation. I mean, I'm already kind of personally living on a Bitcoin stand. I got to tell you, it feels great. In the Bitcoin area, I mean, that's one of the things I look at most carefully is how fast is it growing in terms of users, applications, adoption. And I've seen nothing that indicates that it's slowing down. In fact, I would argue it's the other way. It's kind of accelerating, modestly, but accelerating. And so
미국의 대표적인 투자자이자 펀드 매니저인 레리 레파드는 거시 경제 분석가로 활동하고 있는 인물입니다. 통화 정책의 실체와 인플레이션의 위험, 사운드 머니, 비트코인의 필요성에 대해 날카롭게 고찰하며 비트코인 투자 펀드를 운영 중입니다. 또한 현재 금융 시스템은 신뢰를 잃었고 그 해답은 탈중앙화된 디지털 자산에 있다고 주장하며 비트코인을 강력히 옹호 중이죠. 이런 그가 비트코인은 단순한 투자 자산이 아니라 새로운 사회 시스템의 기반으로 바라보며 이제는 실생활 속에서 사용뿐 아니라 전 세계적으로 확대될 것으로 바라보고 있습니다.
So there's a certain amount of pattern recognition where, this next network, and the monetary network that Bitcoin is establishing, it reminds me so much of the internet. It's almost like deja vu. So, I think what you want to try and find is a technical change that's unique and different, that brings some real value, and then, increased adoption, what I always call dogs eating food. So year over year, more people are using it, implying that it's a good thing. And, and then you get into these adoption curves. I've got a few of them in the book where it just kind of shows, and it goes back quite a ways. I mean, washing machines, cell phones, computers, whatever it might be. You get your early adopters who are testing it, and the things are clunky. It doesn't really work that well. And then it gets better and better, and the technology keeps improving, and pretty soon everybody has it. It's just like obvious. How can you live without a cell phone? And so, the original phones were flip phones. Hell, the original phone was the one that Michael Douglas had in Wall Street, with that big brick that he was carrying around on the beach. My boss had one of those, and I remember at the time that the per minute rate was like $1.50. So, and he was an important guy, and occasionally he had to do things, and so he'd get on the phone and he'd make a 10-minute phone call for $15, and from anywhere, and that was cool. And think about what that is today. We all have phones. We can make calls all around the world, for $30 a month. Effectively, it's free almost. So you just kind of look for these technology trends that are emerging and more usage. And in the Bitcoin area, that's one of the things I look at most carefully is how fast is it growing in terms of users, applications, adoption. And I've seen nothing that indicates that it's slowing down. In fact, I would argue it's the other way. It's kind of accelerating, modestly, but accelerating. And so, that tells me that, just let this play itself out. And then, I think most people in the world now know what they've heard of it. You'd have to be living in a cave. Well, in the Western world, I should say, in the developed world, you'd have to be living in a cave to not be aware that Bitcoin exists. Mm-hmm. But I would say that the people that know that they need it, the percentage of those people who know that it exists, that then also understand that they really need it. Still, what has it got to be? 1%, 2%, 5%? It's small, right? Yeah. And I think that what's going to happen is, the part that doesn't know they need it, they're going to learn that they need it. And so, as they do, and because, we've got this, it's fixed in supply, as everyone knows, and nobody's ever seen anything like this before, because all the commodities, the supply will grow if the price goes up. Well, this is one where the price will go up and the supply won't grow. Mm-hmm. The supply is algorithmically set at 21 million coins. Price can go to wherever. It doesn't matter. There aren't any more of them. So yeah. That's why I think Saylor's insight that it's going up forever, Laura. To me, that's one of the hardest things for people who are looking at it for the first time to get their arms around. I can't tell you how many friends I have who say, "Well, yeah, I know I should have bought it, but I didn't. You told me to, I didn't." But you bought it at 10,000. It's 100. How can I pay 100 for it? I'm paying too much. I'm like, you're looking at it wrong. I paid 10,000 for it. Max Kaiser bought it at $1. And in 10 years, if you buy it at 100 and it's at $1 million, somebody's gonna say, "Oh shit, I can't pay $1 million for it. You paid 100,000 for it."
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. So.
Yeah, and I mean, we touched upon the point that we are seeing the network grow, right? We are seeing adoption grow, and we want that.
Right.
But we're entering into this phase of institutions like ETFs and Bitcoin treasury companies, and they're just vacuuming up coins, and then they're sitting on them.
Yeah.
So do you think that Bitcoin needs to be used more as a medium of exchange to really take the adoption to the next level?
That's a great issue and a great point up for debate. And I mean, I can kind of see both sides. I mean, I think, Jeff Booth is a very strong believer that he's a friend, and he's a very strong believer that, we've absolutely got to get the medium of exchange piece going because it just gets it inside everybody's head. To be frank, I'm kind of with Saylor. Right now, it's just pristine digital capital. It's digital gold. The medium of exchange thing isn't that important, but so I can see both sides of this argument. I think that it will become, first of all, it's growing as a medium of exchange. I mean, all the Bitcoin shows I go to, I just buy things out of my Strike wallet, on Lightning. And you're seeing more and more medium of exchange use cases. So and in third world countries, actually, it's pretty heavily used as a medium of exchange. There's a part of my book where I talk about Nairobi, where, they've got a terrible currency and a lot of people are conducting their lives on a Bitcoin standard, using Lightning wallets. So it is there. The medium of exchange piece is there. And I think it will continue to grow as time goes by. And I think that it's just another way that it'll creep into everybody's consciousness. I mean, and I think eventually it will be the medium of exchange. I think eventually the dollar will be gone. It'll be kind of a relic. And I've said this before, I think my kids and grandkids will price things in Satoshis. I mean, how many, that sandwich, that's 5 Satoshis or whatever it is. I mean, I just think these other monetary things will go away. And the reason I say that is that, humankind has this history of when you find something better, everyone kind of migrates towards it. And, now, it could take time. I mean, this isn't, money touches every part of society, and it's very, very viral, and it's got a huge network effect, and it's got a huge, Lindy effect going backwards so that the dollar's got tons and tons of momentum. So we're not going to turn this thing over in 5 years or 10 years, but in 20 years, 30 years, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, that Bitcoin will be kind of the true north monetary standard. That's my belief.
Yeah, you use Bitcoin as you need it, right? And
right.
In the West, we need a savings vehicle.
Right.
People in Africa need a way to buy a loaf of bread, right?
Right.
Without a bank account. So
right.
I think as time goes on, we will use it more as a medium of exchange here as well.
Yeah, and I try to, whenever I can, whenever anybody accepts Bitcoin, I pay in Bitcoin. And then I replace it with, I take fiat from obviously we all have fiat accounts. You can't really live paying for everything in Bitcoin. It's very hard to do. But it's very easy to take my fiat, send it to my Strike wallet, and buy more Bitcoin. So yeah, I try to use it whenever possible. And I try, and I use it to orange pill people. I mean, I try to, people who don't get it. I mean, I find myself in a lot of service institutions, restaurants particularly, where I say, well, I'm going to give you the tip, and here's, put on the credit card, but I'd like to give you a little extra tip if you learn about Bitcoin, right? And they say, what is it? Well, okay, so you got a phone? Yeah, okay. So here, download this Strike wallet. Okay, set it up. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Great, I'm going to send you $5 worth of Bitcoin to your Strike wallet right now. Mm-hmm. And it just plants the seed, right? And they're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. How'd you do that? How'd that happen so fast? What, right? I mean, it's so again, it's to me, we're racing because fiat and CBDCs are making the world a terrible place, and the governments are trying to push CBDCs, and we're kind of in a race with them. So we got to get as much of the world as possible to see our side of it and be using our side of it and recognize that this is the right way to go. I mean, as you alluded to those socialists who think the problem is, not enough government. We gotta show them, no, the problem is too much government. And here's how you beat it. So
yeah, and just to finish that up, I think one big mantra of the last couple of years is never sell your Bitcoin, right? That's a famous Michael Cera line. But no, you got to spend it. You got to use it. You got to get comfortable with it. Learn how to use a wallet, send a transaction, and
it's very easy. I mean, the way I think of it is, I kind of have you got two parts. I mean, you got your cold storage savings Bitcoin. That's a number you're just never going to touch. You're going to let that grow forever, and your kids are going to be really glad you did it. And then then you got your wallet, which, you've got a few sets laying over there, and, you spend them and then you refresh it, and you spend them and you refresh it. So You know, they're just different. You know, they're different use cases. One is for store of value, and the other is for medium of exchange. You know, and it's better than that too, because it's not just about number go up and protecting your wealth. Although, you know, let's not kid ourselves, that matters to all of us. It's also about, you get to vote with your money. Our vote at the ballot booth doesn't really mean very much, because often we have two pretty shitty choices. But if you vote with your money to take it out of the banks, take it out of their system, and use this alternative system that's clearly fair and clearly better, and that's a small. If we all did that, I mean, Jeff Booth once said to me, he said, Larry, if we get everybody to do this, the whole damn thing would collapse and we'd be on a Bitcoin stand. He's right, but we're not even anywhere close to that. So, but I think what people have to understand is that every one of us does get that vote.
We're going to have to go through this big print.
Yeah.
You say by the mid-2030s, might have a currency collapse, right? But on the other end, we're hoping for something better. And
Absolutely. It's going to be so much better. Oh my God. There'll be no Federal Reserve. The price of everything will be fair. You won't have all this monetary premium in homes. Young people will be able to afford things. You won't have to worry about inflation. I mean, I'm already kind of personally living on a Bitcoin stand. I got to tell you, it feels great. A lot of the stuff associated with fiat is just going to go away. The government, I think government's going to lose a lot of its power. How are they going to pay for wars? It's a beautiful tool for stripping power away from government. It really is. It's just so great.
레리 레파드는 인터넷 초기화의 유사성을 언급하며 비트코인 채택은 기술 발전과 사용자 확대에 따라 필연적으로 빠르게 진행될 것이라고 주장합니다. 비트코인은 공급이 고정된 최초의 디지털 자산이며 희소성에 따라 가치가 상승할 수밖에 없다고 보고 있죠. 법정화폐는 인플레이션과 권력 집중 문제를 일으키지만 비트코인이 이에 대한 탈중화된 대안으로 앞으로 글로벌 통화 표준이 될 것이라고 전망합니다. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈겜이 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.